Hi, good evening, everybody. Bruchim Habayim. It's a big zchus for me to introduce Rabbi Glatstein to you. I've known him for about 10 years. We're friends. I've studied with him. The truth is, what I wanted to say, I already said. So, for those of you who follow Rabbi Glatstein, I had the pleasure, the privilege today to actually see the effect of Rabbi Glatstein's Torah on people who, from very far-flung places, who never met him before, but follow him religiously online. And it was amazing to see the power of how somebody who is Margaret's Torah can have an effect on people, without having any other connection to them. It's a pleasure to see it. I know how it affected me, how he affects me, but it was eye-opening to see it with other people. In any case, Rabbi Glatstein is he's a Moshiach of Chafetz Chaim in New York. He had a shul in Kew Garden Hills, which he became the rabbi of it, where the shul was really dying. He brought it back to life, and so much so that he got hired to do the same thing in a different shul, a bigger shul, in Long Island, in Cedarhurst. He's the Moed Da'ashen Rav of Kilas Avos Yisrael in Cedarhurst. It's a great pleasure and privilege for me to introduce him and have him come speak to us. As Aaron said, if you follow him online or you know him, then you know what you're about to experience. And if you haven't, then you're fortunate to have the opportunity to hear it live instead of online. Glatstein, please.
So to tell you the truth, I spent some time learning in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim, but I never had the zchus to teach, to give shir in Yerushalayim. So I'm really grateful to Yibban Shalom for bringing me to this day to have the zchus Lomed Ulalamed Ki Mitzion Teitzei Soira. So I wish all of you, and I bless all of you, Yivarachecha Hashem Mitzion V'rei B'tov Yerushalayim. I want to thank Reb Shaul for making this trip possible to allow me to come here, and for organizing and help organizing together with Reb Aaron and Yibana tonight's beautiful event. One of the shiurim we're going to give is how different parts of Eretz Yisrael correspond to different mitzvahs, and I think being in Yerushalayim, perhaps the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchin is the mitzvah that connects to Yerushalayim, because I've had such warm hospitality.
They said Yishmael.
I know.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, a different shame. Okay, be it as it may, let's cut right to the chase. Tonight we're going to discuss perhaps a certain pattern that we see in the world today. In Eretz Yisrael, it goes without saying, we all feel what we call Galus Yishmael. Everyone has felt it in this country for so many years, since its inception and even before. Growing up in America, however, as a kid, nobody ever heard of Galus Yishmael. It wasn't on the radar, it wasn't on the map. Everybody knew America is Galus Edom. America is the spiritual heir of the European civilization and the European world. Edom, Christianity. And Yishmael was something that, we turn to the news and see what's happening to Achinu B'nai Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. But the concept of being subjugated and under a galus of Yishmael was not something that we really thought of. And yet, in the last 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, we see a change in pattern in the world. In America, I remember where I had a shul, right across the street, the biggest property was bought up. And now it hosts a very large mosque. I spoke in London a few months ago, in Edgware. The biggest house of worship in the entire European continent is being built right in London. They predict 40, 50 years, Europe will be a completely different continent. And we're starting to feel, not only in Eretz Yisrael, but really, b'chol ha'olam kulai, throughout the world, sort of the dissipation of Galus Edom and the predominance of Galus Yishmael. And what we would like to discuss tonight is this in the works? Is this in the plan? Where does Galus Yishmael come into the destiny of the Jewish people? Where does it fit in terms of we're all hoping and yearning for the Achros Hayamim, so at what interval in our history do our sages teach us that yes, there is Galus Yishmael, and at that point in time, that is connected to the coming of the Moshiach that we all await. So let's begin. We're all familiar that there's a concept of Dalet Golios. There are 4 basic exiles, and this is such a fundamental concept, and this is such a basic concept, that in the very beginning of the Torah HaKadosh, in the very beginning of the Chumash begins. Chumash begins, Bereshis bara Elokim, Vayomer Elokim Yivaruach Elokim ra'achafes al pnei hamayim, Vayomer Elokim Yehi ar. Please forgive me. Don't hold it against. I want to welcome, I see my aunt is coming in, Mrs. Glick, so I want to welcome her and thank her for coming tonight. Okay. The very beginning of the Torah already predicts the concept that there are going to be 4 Golios. The pasuk, V'ha'aretz hoisa soihu, v'avoihu, v'choshech al pnei sahaim. The Medrash tells us, all the way in the beginning of the Torah, look at number 1, Rishon ben Lakish, Pasar Karya V'golios. Rish Lakish interpreted that this pasuk refers to the 4 exiles. V'ha'aretz hoisa soihu. It was desolate. What does this refer to? Zeh Golos Bavel. This refers to the Babylonian exile, because we find in connection to Babel the words V'hinei soyu. It was desolate. Then it says Vavoihu, empty. That refers to Madai, Persia Media, like the pasuk says Vayavhilu Lavias Haman. Choshech, of course, refers to Yavan. After all, we know, we speak about this Chanukah time, that the Yavanim hechshichu eineim shel Yisrael b'gzeiroseim. They darkened our eyes with their decrees. And then the Medrash ends, what is the 4th and final Galos? Al Pnei Sahaim, on the face of the abyss. Zeh Galos Mamleches Harasha. That is the evil empire. Anonymous, ambiguous, does not say which empire it's referring to. But one thing it says is She'ein Lahem Cheker. It cannot be investigated. It's endless. We don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, the Medrash says. Like the Tahaim, just like the Tahaim, Ein Loi Cheker, so too the 4th and final Galos, Ein Loi Cheker. And the question is, so what is the 4th and final Galos? According to most authorities, the 4th Galos is Galos Edom. According to most Rishonim, according to the Ramban, according to almost everybody, the 4th Galos is Galos Edom, with the exception of the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra's opinion throughout Sefer Daniel and throughout Tanakh is that the 4th Galos, in fact, is Galos Yishmael. Because Roimi and Yavan are related to each other. Rome was a descendant of Greece, and therefore, in the opinion of Ibn Ezra, it's Babylon, Babel, Persia Media, Greece, Rome, and then finally Galos Yishmael. But the Ibn Ezra, Kedarkoi B'Kodesh, as he commonly does, very often disagrees with Divrei Chazal. Now, how he's able to do that is a discussion for another time. But according to most authorities, the 4th and final Galos is Galos Edom. So the question is, why is Yishmael not on the list? What, they don't meet the bill? They don't make the cut? I mean, they're trying so hard. You should get, they should get points for effort. They would like to, they seem to be doing everything needed to qualify as a Golos, and yet according to most Rishonim and according to Chazal in general, Yishmael is not on the list. Why is that? Why are they not on the official almanac list of the 4 Golios? What's very interesting is there is a more expanded list, where this list is not only listing 4 Golios, but it actually lists 8 Golios. In fact, every day when we say Tachnun, according to Nusach Ashkenaz, according to Ashkenazim, the Tachnun that we say is Perek Vav, Lam Natseach Al Hashminis Mizmar L'David. We actually skip the first pasuk. We begin Shema Al Yabcha Seichicheni. We skip the first pasuk of Perek Vav of Tehillim. But really that Perek begins Lam Natseach by the conductor Al Hashminis On the 8th, Mizmar LeDavid. And the Medrash comments, what does it refer to Al Hashminis on the 8th? What is 8? What exactly is 8? So if you look carefully in the Medrash says, if you take a look at number 3 in the Medrash Shachatayv, Davar Achar Al Hashminis, Al Arba Goliyos Shehein Shmoina Malchiyos. 4 exiles that are in fact 8 kingdoms. The Edom Hi Hashminis, and the 8th and final is Edom. How do we know they're 8, says the Medrash? The Medrash says, well, if you study the prophecy of Daniel, Daniel saw a monster. And the monster had a head and a chest and arms. That's considered 2 Golios. The head and the arms. The stomach and the legs, that's another 2. The thighs are another 2. The feet are another 2. This is a reference to the 8 Malchios, says the Medrash. What are they? Says the Medrash, Bavel. Okay, we already know that. Kazdim. Now, Kazdim are the Chaldeans, which means that Bavel and Kazdim were like simultaneous dual gullus. Madai Paras, the Medrash says. Because we know in Megillas Esther, sometimes it's Sarei Paras and Madai, sometimes it's Madai Paras. In fact, the Gemara even says that they made a deal. Sometimes you'll be the head and we'll be second. Sometimes we'll be ahead and you'll be second. So Madai and Paras were a dual gullus. Yavan and Moikdan. We know that ultimately Greece and Macedonia, Alexander the Great. So this was also a dual gullus. And concludes the Medrash, Yishmael ve'Edom. The final 2 golusim are Yishmael and Edom. And it seems like, according to Medrash Shachatayv, in that order. Yishmael, Edom. And maybe you could make a case that that's in fact what happened in world history. There was a time that the Muslims ruled a large part of Europe, and then Reconquista happened in the 15th century, and they conquered most of Europe. So in 711, I think in America it's an easy number to remember, 711. So the Muslims conquered the Iberian Peninsula, and then Reconquista, the Christian world, reconquered most of the Iberian Peninsula. So you could in fact say that is what the Medrash is referring to. Yishmael and Edom. Fine, these are the 8 Golusim, Bavel, Kazdi, Madai, Paras, Yavan, Moikdan, Yishmael, and Edom. Which one is number 8? So the Medrash says Yishmael, and then Edom. Concludes the Medrash, this is what it means, Lam Natseach al Hashminis. However, if you examine Rashi carefully, now this is a random Rashi in Sefer Zechariah, in the middle of nowhere, Rashi decides to expound on this pasuk, Lam Natseach al Hashminis. Rashi says, what does the pasuk refer to? Lam Natseach al Hashminis, V'shepasarti malchus Nebuchadnezzar bekefel shtei umos. Nebuchadnezzar's reign could be broken up into 2. How is that? Dalet Malchios Shehim Shmoina Bavel Kazdi Madai Paras Antiochus Moikdan Edom Yishmael. What's interesting is Rashi flips the order. Rashi flips the order. That's not the way the Medrash says it. The Medrash says it Yishmael Edom. Rashi says Edom Yishmael. Is that dafka? Is that lav dafka? Did Rashi mean to do that? Should we really pay that close attention to the order that Rashi gave? Even though Rashi does say the 8th is Edom. But nevertheless, Rashi switched the language of the Medrash. Why did he do that? Does Rashi hold there's a different order of things? So keep that in your back pocket. At the end of the day though, even though there might be 8 Malchios, there are certainly only 4 Golios. Why would Yishmael not make the official list of being a Galus? And just one added thing before we start to tie things together. There's a comment of the Arizal. Arizal says that even if you hold there are only 4 Golios, Bavel, Madai, Yavan, the final Galus represents the 2 legs. There certainly will be 2 Golusim right before Moshiach comes, Edom, Yishmael. And that's certainly something that we see to be true. But let's come back to the topic. Why don't Chazal consider Yishmael to be a galus? Okay, let's mention a very important Gemara. This Gemara gives us the most descriptive account of what will take place on the great day when Moshiach comes. The Gemara, in the beginning of Masechet Avodah Zarah, the Gemara says, La'asid Labai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take a Sefer Torah in his lap. He's going to raise up the Sefer Torah, and he's going to say, whoever delved into this, come, get your reward, payday. That's what the Gemara says. It says the Gemara, Lami sha'asak ba yava v'yital scharai. So, obviously, everyone's going to claim that they were involved in learning Torah, not only the Jewish people, but all the nations of the world are going to come, yeah, we built this so the Jews could learn, and we discovered that, and we made this invention. Everything we did was so that the Jewish people should be able to learn Torah. And the Gemara tells us they all come clamoring, and they're all mixed up, and they're all out of position, they're out of line. Hashem says, let's get in order first, get a single file, please let's do this in an orderly way. And they all line up. And the Gemara says, who is the first nation to come before the Rebbe Shalom and request reward? Says the Gemara, Miyad nichnasa lefanav, the fourth narrow line in number 6. Miyad nichnasa lefanav malchus roimei tchila. The first nation to request reward from the Rebbe Shalom is Rome. My taima, why? Mishum dechashiva, because Rome is the most important of all the Malchios. By the way, there's a beautiful remez to the Daled Malchios, the beginning of Parshas Maseh, the end of Sefer Bamidbar. Eila Maseh B'nei Yisrael. So the Magal Amukoi says, Eila is Aleph, Maseh Mem, B'nei Beis, Yisrael Yud. Aleph is Edom, Mem is Madai, Beis is Bavel, Yud is Yavan. You know what the travails, the travels of the Jewish people are? Eila Maseh B'nei Yisrael, Edom, Madai, Bavel, Yavan. These are the 4 travels, the 4 trips, the 4 great exiles. Says the Megal HaMukas, if you look carefully at the trup, at the cantillation, the musical notes on those words, Eila Maseh B'nei Yisrael. Eila is Azla Geresh. B'nei Yisrael, Munach Ravi. Azla Geresh. That means we were thrown out. We were chased out. Where were we put? Munach, we were placed Ravi in the 4 Galusim. Eila Maseh B'nei Yisrael. Edom, Moab, Bavel, Yavan. What's the trump? Azla Geresh. Go! It's being chased out. Munach, you're going to be placed Ravi in the 4 exiles. But what's most interesting is the order that's given. Eila is Edom, Mem is Madai. Why does Edom go first? Based on this Gemara, we understand why they go first. Because the first nation who will come before God at the end of the day saying, we want reward, is Edom. Why Edom? The Gemara says they're the most chashuv. They're the most important. Of all the 4 exiles, of all the 4 empires, the most prominent, the most prestigious is Edom. Therefore, they're alluded to right away. Eila, Aleph. So what's their taina? What do they claim before Hashem? They say, Ribbon Shalom. Everything we did was so that the Jewish people should be able to learn Torah. Harbe Shavakim Takninu. We made many marketplaces. Harbe Merchatzois Asinu. We made bathhouses. Harbe Kesef Ezav Herbinu. We amassed wealth. All the stores and all the streets and all the bathhouses and all the money, it was only so that the Jewish people should be able to learn Torah. So pay up. We want reward. Im ein kemach, ein Torah. Nobody's learning if there aren't streets, if there aren't stores, if there isn't money, and if there's nowhere to take a bath. So, pay up! So the Rebbe Shalom says back something very interesting. He didn't say you're lying. He said, Shaitim Shabba'ilam. You fools, that's not why you did it. Interestingly, meaning the Rebbe Shalom is saying, I understand. It is for the Jewish people so that they should be able to learn Torah. Remember, Rosh Hashiva, so Tzak Rabbi Menach pointed out, Rebbe Shalom doesn't say, no, the bathhouses are not so that the Jewish people are able to learn Torah. The Gemara doesn't say the stores are not so, no, that's what they are for. but that wasn't your kavanah, and you can't get reward for helping someone if you didn't try to help them, if you weren't mechaven to help them. So the Gemara says Hashem throws them out of the courtroom, and He sends them packing, and they leave b'fachei nefesh, they leave despondent. Okay, says the Gemara, and who enters after Rome? Achar Malchus Roimi Nichnasa Malchus Paras. Persia. Now let's just get something straight. Persian Empire is long gone. Iran today has no connection to the ancient Persian Empire. They're not ethnically related. There is no connection whatsoever between Iran today and the ancient Persian Empire. And yet the Gemara says at the end of days, the second nation who's going to come before the Rebbe Shalom, claiming rewards, saying, we want pay, is Paras. Why, says the Gemara? Why Paras? Why not Yavan? Why not Babel? Says the Gemara, because they're the second ranking empire. They rank number 2. First Edom, and then Paras. And what's Paras's taina? Says the Gemara, Paras comes before Hashem on the wide line, says the Gemara, no, what were you busy with? How did you help the Jewish people learn Torah? So Ribono Shel Olam, Harbe Gesharim Gasharnu. We made bridges. Harbe Krachim Kavashnu, we conquered cities. Harbe Milchamos Asinu, we made wars. You should know, we didn't build one street. We didn't make one bridge. We didn't wage one war. Other than that, the Jewish people should be able to learn Torah. And Hashem responds, likewise, Shoitim Shaba'olam, you fools! Not that you're wrong, that's why you did it. In fact, every war is somehow so that the Jewish people should be able to learn. Every bridge is somehow so that the Jewish people should be able to learn. But you didn't do it for that reason. L'tzarech atzmechem asisem. You did it for yourself. You made bridges to collect taxes. You made conquered cities to get soldiers. War, says God, Melchama ani asisi. I make all the wars. So Rome is thrown out, Paras is thrown out. And then the Gemara asks the $1 million question, which is the key to understanding the world today. As they say in Yeshiva, Frag the Gemara has the following question. In the last 2 lines, what makes Edom chashuv? What makes Paras chashuv? What? Babel is not chashuv. Yavan is not chashuv. Why is Edom and Paras considered important? Says the Gemara, Mishum Dahanoch Mishchi b'malchusayu ada'asi Mashiach. These are the only 2 empires that will last until Moshiach comes. Yavan, relic of history. Babylon, go to the British Museum. The only 2 empires that will last until the end of time is Edom, and Edom, I get that. If you acknowledge the fact that America somehow is the spiritual heir of European civilization, I get it. America will last to the end of time, or at least until Moshiach comes. But what does the Gemara mean? Rome, Roimi, Edom, and Paras, Persia? Persia will last until Moshiach comes? They're dead as a doorknob. That's what they say in America. They're long gone. They're a relic of the past. You want to see ancient ruins of the Persian Empire? Museum of Natural History. There's no Persian Empire today. Paras? What in the world is the Gemara talking about? That Rome and Persia will last until the end of days. But it's even more severe. Listen to this one. Because there's another Gemara. There's a Gemara in Yuma, Daf Yud. And the Gemara brings a machlokes. Okay, so right now, we know if we had to have, a war at the end of days, and it was 2 nations that remained standing, who are they? The Gemara just said. Roimi, Edom, and Paras. So it's going to be America versus the Persian Empire. And who's going to win? Who's going to win the final war? So it's not a matter of opinion. It's not what I say. It's not what anyone else says. What do Chazal tell us? So Gemara says it's a machlokes. Interesting machlokes. Gemara in Yuma, it's machlokes tanoim. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Amar Rabbi, Asida roimi shetipo biad paras. Rome, Edom, America, they will fall to the Persian Empire. You hear this thing? Here's the Maisa. That the America, Rome, will fall to the Persian Empire. Persian Empire, long gone. Now we're saying they're going to last until the end of days, and they're going to defeat Edom and Roimi. And the Gemara quotes Psukim. And in fact, not only is that the opinion of Rabbi, Rabbi's a Tana. So we went today, I don't know how I'm here now. We woke up today at 4:30 in the morning. We went to Tiberia. We got all the hot spots, not just the hot springs. We got Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Meir Bal Hanes, and Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, and the Rambam, and the Shlach Kadosh, and Rabbi Akiva, and the Ramchal, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We went to Meron. We went to Tzfas. I would have liked to go to Rabbi, but it was either Rabbi or learning Rabbi here tonight. So we chose Divrei Elokim Chaim. Rabbi's opinion is that Persia will defeat Rome. And then the Gemara continues. The Gemara brings another opinion. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eloi. We saw Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi also. We said a kapitel to him in the car as we were driving by. Asida roimi shetipo biad paras. Rome will fall to Persia. And the Gemara makes the Kal V'chomer. The Kal V'chomer is something like this. It's a very hard logic to understand, but the logic goes like this. Who destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash? Babylonians. It was built by Klal Yisrael. The Babylonians destroyed it. Says the Gemara, the first Beis HaMikdash that we built, and the Babylonians destroyed, and the Persians destroyed the Babylonians. So we see how great the Persians are. They could defeat the ones that destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash, that the Persians built, and Rome destroyed. Certainly the Persians will destroy Rome. That's the logic of the Gemara. And then the Gemara brings a different opinion. Amar Rav. By the way, you know who Rav is? Who's Rav in the Gemara? That's Rabbi. Who's Rav? The Gemara says Rav Tanahu Upalik. Rav is an Amoira, but he can be a Tan. Who's Rav?
Student of Rabbi.
Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba. Who's Rabbi Abba? Right? Because Rabbi Abba is called Rav. Rabbi Abba is a primary disciple of the Rashbi. Rav wrote the Zohar HaKadosh. Rav says, Asida parasha tipo biad roimi. Persia will fall to Rome. Okay, so we have this war at the end of days, according to the Gemara. The final two players are, hopefully, what are we going to do? We wish both sides Hatzlach Rabba, right? But what are we going to be doing? Hopefully, only watching. But it's a war at the end of days. It's either Paras, Persia against Romi, and who will defeat who? It's a machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan say, Paras will win. And Rav says, no, Roimi will win. What does the Gemara mean? Is it just one of these agaritas that we have to say, look, we don't really understand the Divrei Chachamim, the Chidaisam, we don't understand the riddle, the mystery that the sages are trying to convey to us? It seems like something that is not realistic. The Persian Empire is dead. And yet the Gemara says the two empires that will last until the end of time is Rome and Paras. Not only that, there are opinions that Paras will be the last man standing before Moshiach comes. So with this, let us appreciate the brilliant comments of the Maharal of Prague, who addresses the question that we began with head on. And the Maharal in the Sefer Ner Mitzvah says, there are many who ask the following question. Why is Yishmael not on the official list of Goliath? And the Maharal gives two magnificent answers. The second answer the Maharal feels is the most definitive answer. Answer number one goes as follows. Says the Maharal, what is the definition of a Golos? What is the definition of a Malchus? Says brilliantly, what is Malchus? Malchus belongs to the Jewish people. David HaMelech, Malchus based David, the Davidic dynasty. What is the role of David? David is Daled Vav Daled. Chazal tell us David is the fourth leg of the Kisei HaKavod. There's Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. However, a chair with 3 legs will topple over. David is what gives Amida to the throne of Hashem. David is what gives the Kisei HaKavod standing, stability. How? Through Malchus Beis David, the reign of Hashem is recognized in the world. David is the Regel Ravi. That's why when Yehuda was born, what does the pasuk say? The Shlach HaKadosh says, "V'ta'amoid miledes," a lashon of Amida, through Shevet Yehuda, the Kisei HaKavod as Amida, and it is the reflector and what brings out Malchus Shamayim in the world. When Bavel came and destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, it usurped Malchus of Klal Yisrael and hijacked it and held it hostage and took it to the Goyim. That's the concept of Malchus. Malchus is not royalty or sovereignty. Malchus means the usurping, the co-opting of Malchus Shamayim through Malchus Beis David and taking it to the Umayis Ha'olam. And when Paras conquered Bavel, they took that Malchus that used to belong to us, was taken by Bavel, and they now have Malchus Shamayim. That's why Achashverosh wants to parade and wants to make a show with the Bigdei Kahuna. He's demonstrating that the Malchus Shamayim rests in our hands. And then Yavan conquered Paras, and then Edom conquered Yavan. Malchus Shamayim Chalila, unfortunately, rests in the hands of the Umayis Ha'olam. And until the great day of Moshiach, when Malchus Beis David will restore Malchus Shamayim. So that is why, Rav Hutner points out, the Gemara tells us there's this interesting seesaw relationship between Rome and Eretz Yisrael, between Rome and Yerushalayim. The Gemara says in Megillah, if someone says that Rome is built and Yerushalayim is built, they're lying. If someone says they're both in ruins, they're lying. If someone says Yerushalayim is bevinyana and Caesarea is bechorvana, ta'amin. If somebody says Caesarea is bevinyana and Yerushalayim is also believe them. Because it's one or the other. It's one malchus. Either we have it or they have it. But we both can't have it at the same time. However, says Maral, the koyach of Yishmael is not to usurp our malchus. Yishmael has their own independent source of power. What is Yishmael's source of power? The Maral says amazingly, the source of the power of Yishmael is the tefillah of Avraham Avinu. Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha. When Avraham Avinu uttered those words, by the way, these are words that we were not happy about. Zohar HaKadosh says, when Avraham Avinu said, Lu Yishmael Yichya Lefanecha, Klal Yisrael said to Avraham, Abraham, Azavtanu, you forsook us. Why'd you say that? Why'd you give Yishmael Kayach? You should not have said those words. But once Abraham said those words, and the Rebbe Shem responded, Uli Yishmael Shematicha, Yishmael was then infused with power, and we both could be on top of the world, and we both could be down in the dumps. Our relationship is not a seesaw, it's not one entity. We could have Kayach and they could have Kayach. Their Kayach comes from a different source. Therefore, says Maral, it's not that Yishmael is not bad enough to be a Galus. It's not that they're not evil enough. It's not that they don't want to destroy us. It's they don't meet the technical requirement of the definition of a Malchus. Definition of a Malchus is Malchus Shemaya, that the Malchus Beis David has. Yishmael never took that. And therefore they don't fit the bill. They don't meet the criteria. But says the Maral, as true as this answer is, it's not the definitive answer. Incredibly, the Maral says, let me tell you something. It's a mistake to think that Yishmael is not one of the 4 Malchus. It is. Which Malchus is it? It's Persia. Paras in the Gemara is Golos Yishmael. Says Maral, but Persia is long gone. That's right, but Yishmael is not. So Maral asks, what does Persia have to do with Yishmael? They're not ethnically related. He says the 4 Golios are not 4 ethnicities. They're 4 general categories of behavior. And the description of the Persians that the Gemara gives of conquering cities and waging wars is the precise description of the historical tendencies of Yishmael. So true, the Persian Empire has fallen, but the concept of Paras remains strong, to the point where, says the Maral, if the Gemara tells us Persia will last until the end of days just because the Persian Empire has crumbled, Divrei Chachamim Kayamim La'olam, you'll see the Persian Empire will last to the end of days. You know why? Because it refers to Galus Yishmael. And based on this Maral, we have a very frightening description of the end of days. Because if Paras refers to Yishmael, then the Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zarah, when the Gemara says there will be two nations at the end of days, which are the most chashuv, which are they? Rome and Paras. And the Gemara says, why will they be the most? Why are they the most chashuv? Because these are the two empires that will last until the end of days. What is the Gemara referring to? America, the Western world, and Yishmael. These are the two main powers that the Gemara, close to 1500 years ago, told us that at the end of days there will be two powers remaining, Roimi and Paras, which are identified as Western civilization and the Arab world. And in the war of the end of days, who's going to win? Who's going to win that frightening battle? Who will it be? It's machlekes. It's machlekes. We don't have a definitive answer. The opinion of Rabbi, it ain't going to be America. The opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, not going to be America. Rav says, no, Paras will fall to Raimi, to Edom. But we don't have a clear answer. It's a machlokes Tanam. Could it be then that when Rashi switches around the order of Edom and Yishmael, Rashi was not lav dafka. Rashi is siding with the Tanam that say that the eighth and final Galus will be Galus Yishmael. The Medrash Shoichar Toiv, on the other hand, is going with the opinion of Rav, that first comes Yishmael, and then comes Edom. So actually what comes out is, there may be a machlokes Rashi's version of the Medrash versus the Medrash Shoichar Toiv, which is rooted in earlier sources. It's rooted in machlokes Tanoim. It's machlokes Rabbi Yochanan, who say that Paras will defeat Rome, and Rav, that Rome will defeat Paras. So the question is there like a psak halacha on this issue? If you're a betting man, you wanted to, wage money on this war, how do we paskin? Who's going to win the war? So you say, I don't know, this is not a halachic dispute that you could say there's a final psak, but what do the Chachamim say? Who's going to be the last nation standing? Is it going to be Yishmael, or is it going to be Edom? And I think there is somewhat of a conclusion, frighteningly. You ever hear there's a concept of two Mashiachs? There's Moshiach ben David, Moshiach ben Yosef. I'm not telling you a legend, I'm not telling you Midrash, it's a Gemara. The Gemara says that on a pasuk in Avim, in the Gemara in Sukkah number 10, Vayarini Hashem arba charashim, God showed me the four carpenters, the Navi says. Manin hu arba charashim, who are the four carpenters? Amar Rav Chana bar Bizna, Amar Rav Shimon Chasida, Moshiach ben David, Moshiach ben Yosef. Very nice. There are two Mashiachs. So you say, one is enough. First let's have one, then we'll worry if there's two. No, but the Gemara says there are two. There's Moshiach ben David, Moshiach ben Yosef. Why do you need two Mashiachs? We need two Mashiachs. Interesting, if you look at the Medrash Tanchuma, the Medrash Tanchuma gives the Mashiachs two names. Look at number 11. Meshalchei Regel Hashar, Zeh Mashiach ben Yosef, Shenimshal Lashar. When it says God will send the ox, that refers to the Mashiach ben Yosef. Yosef is called an ox. How do we know, where do we see Yosef is called an ox? B'char, Sharai, Ladar Loi. And then Moshiach ben David. What is Moshiach ben David called? Chamar. Shenemar, Ani v'roichev al Chamar. So Moshiach ben Yosef is called Shar. Moshiach ben David is called Chamar. Whoa, what lovely names, right? To call the two Mashiachs, Shar and Chamar. Why? The Zohar also talks about the two Mashiachs. Look at number 12. La Yasser Shem Yehuda, the Mashiach ben David. Mechayik ben Ragla, the Mashiach ben Yosef. Two Mashiachs. Why do I need two Mashiachs? So the Zohar gives us part of the answer, and then the Vilna Gaon fills in the rest. The Zohar says in the Ryan and Parshas Pinchas, number 14, the Zohar says something very interesting. The Midah of Avraham Avinu is Midas HaChesed, but Yishmael is considered to have taken Chesed to the extreme. And extreme Chesed is called Giloy Arayos. Like it says, don't live with your sister, Chesed hu. Chesed hu. So Rashi says, oh, what the Torah means is, don't live with your sister. So who did Cain marry? Cain married his sister. How could Cain marry his sister? Hashem did him a chesed, otherwise he's not going to find there's no one else to marry. But the Michtav Eliyahu says, no, chesed, unbridled chesed is Gilei Arayos. Isha lachesed l'siga chesed hu. Fine. So Yishmael is the extreme of Avraham Avinu. Yitzchak is Midas Hadin, Midas Hagvura. The extreme of Midas Hagvura is Ritzicha, is Esav. So Yishmael takes chesed on the right all the way to the right, and Esav takes din of the left all the way to the left. And then the Zohar says, Moshiach ben David, Moshiach ben Yosef. Moshiach ben Yosef will take us out of Galos Edom. Moshiach ben David will take us out of Galos Yishmael. Interesting. So now we know why we need two Mashiachs, because at the end of days there'll be two exiles. There's Galos Edom, Galos Yishmael. Mashiach ben David is Galos Yishmael. Mashiach ben Yosef is Galos Edom. Now I ask you, really? Why is Yosef taking us out of Galos Esav? Yeah, that's Pasha, it's a Rashi and Chumash. Yaakov Avinu would not face Esav until Yosef was born. V'haya beis Yaakov Eish, ubeis Yosef lahava, ve'esav lakash. In order to destroy Esav, Yaakov Avinu needs the kach of Mashiach ben Yosef. And why is David going versus Yishmael? So the Vilna Gaon really opens up the world, a tremendous Kabbalistic insight, and something that we can understand on our level. The Vilna Gaon wrote a commentary to something called Safra D'Tzniusa. Vilna Gaon says an incredible thing. You know, there's a law in the Torah. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey together. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey together. I tell you the truth, I can think of worse things to do than plow with an ox and a donkey. I mean, that's what we can't do. You can't plow with an ox and a donkey together. So the Vilna Gaon said, that's right, watch out. You don't want to mix the ox and a donkey. You know why? Because the ox is Esav. Esav is called a power in the Chumash. The donkey, who's the chamor in the Chumash? Shavu lachem poyim hachamor. Avraham Avinu says to Eliezer, he says, by the way, hey guys, Vayaras merachayk. Avraham Avinu looks up, they see on the Harabayis the Shechina, so he turns to Yitzchak, no? Give a kick, you see what's going on? Yitzchak says, Avada. Turns to Yishmael, no, you see what's going on in the Harabayis? Yishmael says, no, I don't see nothing. So he said, you don't see the Shechina on the Harabayis. So let me tell you what your connection to the Harabayis is. Shavu lachem payim hachamar. You and the chamar have the same connection to the Harabayis. He don't see, you don't see. Shavu lachem payim hachamar. What is Yishmael called in the Chumash? A chamar. What is Esav called? A shar. Says the Vilna Gaon, if you ever mix the shar and the chamar together, the ox and the donkey together, if Esav and Yishmael would ever come together, they would destroy the whole world. If Esav and Yishmael ever come together, there's a reason why there are two Galasim at the end of days. Because if there would be one unified Galas of Esav and Yishmael, they would destroy the whole world. That's why you can't plow with an ox and a donkey together. That symbolizes the unity of Esav and Yishmael. I'll tell you a story. My grandfather, Zog Glatstein, writes in his personal memoirs about when he was in Auschwitz. And he was taken and he saw Eichmann. In Auschwitz. And Eichmann invited a special guest to join him in Auschwitz. You know who Eichmann invited? The Mufti from Jerusalem. And Eichmann was sitting hand in hand with the Mufti in Auschwitz, and they would march Nebuch, the Jewish skeletons, in front of them, and they would hit them in a way that they would never be able to have children. That was the goal. And that was their entertainment. They would be laughing together. My grandfather wrote that when Mufti came to Auschwitz to join Eichmann, it was the fulfillment of when the Vilna Gaon says that when Esav and Yishmael come together, they will destroy the whole world. That's Auschwitz. The unity of Esav and Yishmael. That's why you can't plow with an ox and a donkey together. That's why in the Chumash we find Yishmael went to be Meshadach with the daughter of Esav. And the Vilna Gaon says Hashem had a medal in what went on over there. I'm not going to get into the details right now. But Hashem had a medal around there so that they would not destroy the world. Says the Vilna Gaon an incredible secret. Yishmael is the Chamar. Esav is the Shar. Moshiach ben Yosef. Yosef is the Bechar Shairoi Hadarloi. Moshiach ben Yosef is Shar versus the Shar. Moshiach ben Yosef will take us out of the Golos of Edom. And Moshiach ben David, who's called Ani V'roichev al Chamar, will take us out of Golos Yishmael, the Shavu Lachem Hayim HaChamar. So I ask you a question then. According to the Vilna Gaon, what comes first? Which nation stands last? Edom or Yishmael? All we need to do is answer one question. What comes first? Moshiach ben Yosef? Moshiach ben David? Of course, first comes Moshiach ben Yosef, then comes Moshiach ben David. In the world of the Vilna Gaon, first Rome falls through Moshiach ben Yosef, and then Yishmael falls through Moshiach ben David. Vilna Gaon seems to be saying that the last nation standing will be the opinion of Rashi, the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, the opinion of Rabbi. Paras will defeat Rami. That is the opinion of the Vilna Gaon. I found something very interesting. That is also the opinion of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Chaim Kanievsky wages in on this one. How did Reb Chaim come to, say who's going to win the final war? In one of the most obscure places, Reb Chaim Kanievsky in his Perush and the Haggadah Shel Pesach. What's very interesting is, in the final Pismon of Haggadah is what? Chagadia. How many characters are in the Chagadia? So you have the kid, right? You have the goat. And the goat gets bit by the cat, and the cat gets bit by the dog, and then the stick, the fire, the water, the cow, the shoichet, and the malach hamanas. How many characters? 8. Says Reb Chaim, who are these 8 characters? Pashut. Just come to the shir. They're 4 galasim, arba shehim shmeina. Each one is a dual galas. There's Babel Kazdi, Madai Paras, Yavan Moiktan, Esav Yishmael. So now the big question is, so which one comes first and which one comes last? Who's the Shaykhet and who's the Malach HaMalas? So in my opinion, they're both equally qualified for both jobs. Says Reb Chaim, the Shaykhet is Edom and the Malach HaMalas is Yishmael. You could have said the other way around. The angel of death in the Holocaust was not a Yishmaeli. But Reb Chaim says, you can check it up in the Sefer Time of the Krah. First comes Edom, Yishmael defeats Edom. Half of a fellow. I think this is also the opinion of the Baal HaTurim, but we'll conclude with that. Let me just take a brief detour. The way Chazal understand Golos Yishmael and why it's such a difficult Golos, and at risk of being considered prejudiced, what can I tell you? What can I do? This is what Chazal writes. The Zohar says in number 19, Ein l'cha galus kasha liyisrael k'may galus Yishmael. There is no more difficult, trying, challenging galus than galus Yishmael. Why is it such a challenging galus? What is it about Yishmael? What is it about them? Almost, how could I say this publicly, but I can't withhold, like nimna toiv. This is what Chazal say. I have a question for you. Rivka Imenu is pregnant. So she passes by the house of Avodah Zarah, someone's kicking to come out. She passes by the house of the Beis HaKnesses, someone's kicking to come out. So she's all upset. She doesn't understand. What kind of kid do I have? He's schizophrenic. What does he want? Is he Talmid Chacham? Is he a Rasha? So he goes to Yeshiva Shema Eber. She goes to the Yeshiva, and the Navi says, don't worry. It's two separate kids. You're going to have a Yaakov, a Gadol Hadar, and then you're going to have an Esav, a mass murderer. So don't worry, Akol B'Seder, you're going to have a lot of nachas. One kid is going to be a Gadol Hadar, and the other kid, look, crusades, Holocaust, pogroms. 1 out of 250% is pretty good, especially in baseball. And she goes home, and she seems to be relaxed and calm. So, how exactly did shame assuage the feelings of Rivka? She's worried that the kid is off the beaten path. And so, how exactly did the Navi console her? Don't worry, you're going to have an Esav, a nice little Esav. He's going to be red from the moment he's born. Says the Kli Yakar, frightening thing. You know what she was worried? She looked at the earlier generation. Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu had a Yitzchak, Gavaldig Nachas, and Avram Avinu had a Yishmael. She said, is that what's going to happen to me? Am I going to have a Tzaddik, Yaakov, and a Rasha like Yishmael? And the Navi said, don't worry, nothing close to Yishmael. It's only an Esav. What does Rashi say? Shnei goyim b'vinech. Who remembers Rashi's comments on the word Shnei goyim b'vinech? Goyim. Zeh? Rabbi? Antoninos. The good guy is Rabbi. And even the Esav guy, he ain't so bad. Antoninus. Antoninus is responsible for the Mishnah. If not for Antoninus, we would not have Shisha Siddur Mishnah. If not for the fact that Antoninus valued his relationship with Rabbi Yehuda Anossi, protected him, funded him, we would not have Torah Shabbat Peh today. But says the Kli Yakar something amazing. Esav ain't all that bad. You know how many good Gerim came from Esav? The Gemara says in Gittin, they sent Nero Kezar to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. And he comes, he shoots an arrow to the north, it lands in Yerushalayim, to the west, Yerushalayim, the east, Yerushalayim. Everywhere he's throwing arrows, it's landing in Yerushalayim. And he meets a kid, and the kid says, hey, listen, this is the plan. You're going to destroy Yerushalayim, and then God's going to obliterate you. He said, no, I'm not interested. The Gemara says, Arak, V'azal, V'nafak Minei, Rameir. Rameir came from Nero Kezar. By the way, interesting. What was Rameir's other name? In the Gemara Hurry, it's a Gimel Ves. Rameir is called Achirim. Achirim. Rashi says Achirim, not Achirim. Rashi says when Yaakov was about to encounter Esav, Vayira Yaakov oid vayetzel, he was afraid and he was distressed. Vayira, he was afraid Shema Yihareg. Maybe he would be killed. Vayetzel, he was distressed. Shema Yihareg Achirim. He didn't want to kill others. So all the Mefarshim asked, who is he worried he's going to kill? Esav? Why is he worried? Habal hargacha, hashkemar, you would be required to kill Esav. Why was he worried he would kill Esav? So many svarim right. He wasn't worried he was going to kill Esav. Shema Yehareg Achirim. He was afraid if he kills Esav, there wouldn't be Rameir. We need Rameir. Rameir is a critical Tano. Without Rameir, we wouldn't have Mishnah. Who else came from Esav? Unclus. Who else came from Esav? Shmaya, Avtalyon. A lot of great Gerim came from Esav. Now let's make a list. How many Gerim throughout Jewish history, how many great Torah sages came from Yishmael? You'll sue me later if you come up with any. The answer is there haven't been any. You know why? Yishmael is a galus and a personality that is so vicious to Klal Yisrael, they're not able to return to the Jewish people and produce someone that will make a great contribution to the Jewish people. That's what the Kli Yakar writes. To the point where he writes, not in our history has there been a Ger Tzedek who has raised up the level of the Jewish people that came from Yishmael. In fact, the Maral says something even more frightening. What can we do? This is what the Maral says. Why is that? Why have there not been any Gerim from Yishmael? He says, well, very simple. So let's compare Galus Edom to Galus Yishmael. So you compare European civilization, America. So the president comes in, you like him, you don't like him. The guy's wearing a nice suit, he has a nice tie, he's dressed like a human being. And he lives in a house, he wears Big Day Adam, he lives in Batei Adam. Yishmael? No. They wear shmatas, they wear a cloth, they wear rags. They don't have the need to wear Big Day Adam. They don't have the need to live in Batei Adam. Why? Why is that? This is not something that I could determine. This is what Maral writes. We know that there are four basic categories of matter. There's doimim, inanimate, chai, doimim, soimeach, that which grows, chai, living, medaber. And then the Kuzari says there's a higher madrega, Klal Yisrael. So there's Adam and there's Yisrael. Says the Maral, the nefesh of Yishmael is not even quite on the madrega of the rest of Bnei Adam. Therefore, even if they were b'megayer, they could not make the same contribution that a ger from Edom could make. You can't climb two rungs. Edom would only have to climb the rung from Adam to Yisrael. Yishmael could not make the jump, could not make the leap. This fits in with the famous comments of Rabbi Shul Leib Diskin. Shul Leib Diskin points out that we know the laws of dictic, laws of grammar are, you first give the noun, and then you give the adjective. Adam gadol, Adam katan, bayis gadol, bayis katan. First the noun, then the adjective. You don't say gadol bayis. Even an American like me knows you can't say gadol bayis. Katan bayis. You say the noun and then the adjective. There's only one exception in the entire Chamisha Chumsha Torah where first the adjective is given and then the noun. V'hu yihya pera adam. Why is that? Says Rabbi Shulei, it's not an exception. It goes with the rule. The noun is a para. That's the noun. That is the proper noun. A wild behemoth. What kind of para? The adjective of the Adam type. That is why Chazal consider Galus Yishmael the most challenging of all the Galusim. So how do we know when the end is near? How do we know when the end is near? There is one amazing siman that the Gemara gives when you could sort of give a little smile and say, you know what? We feel it coming. The Gemara says in Masechta Makos, Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis. So there was a group of Tanoim, Rab Gamliel, Rab Tarfon, Rab Yeshua, Rab Akiva, and they come to the Har HaBayis. They come to the Har Tzofim, and they see the Makom of the Har HaBayis. And what do they see emanating from the Kodesh HaKadoshim? A fox. They see Shual and Hochalim. And all the Tanoim break down crying. Makom Sha'amar Hazar HaKarev Yumas. The Torah says if a non-Kayin would enter there, they would die immediately. And now it's being defiled by Shual. And Rabbi Kiva says, no. And Rabbi Kiva is Mitzachek. And Rabbi Kiva says, if this prophecy is coming true, then guess which prophecy is coming true next? And what do the Tanoim say to Rabbi Akiva? Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu. Somehow, when you see the Shualim prancing on Har HaBayis, Rabbi Akiva is laughing. What does that mean? Who are the Shualim? There's a sefer on Tehillim from Rabbi Vitali, one of the Italian Mekubalim. He says the secret of this Gemara is that we know in Lashon HaKodesh, if there's an aleph that is missing, you're allowed to stick in an aleph. For example, a person is supposed to make 100 brachos a day. The Gemara Menachos Darshans, Mem Gimel Amud Beis. V'yato Yisrael, Mo Hashem Elokecha Shalom Meimach, Al Tikri Ma Ela Mea. So that means whenever there's an aleph, the same way in Gematria you can be one off, in a drasha you could stick in an aleph if needed. If you insert an aleph in the word Shualim, you know what you get? Yishmael. When you see the Yishmaelim saying, Harabayas, it's ours, it belongs to us. When you see the Shualim prancing on the Harabayas, that's when Rabbi Akiva smiles. That's when we know the end is coming to an ear. When you see those Shualim, says Rabbi Vitali, that refers to the Ummah of Yishmael. But it's an explicit Balaturim. Balaturim says, the end of Parshas Toldos, the beginning of Parshas Chayesara. But let me give you one little hakdama, and then it will fit beautifully. We know the word Yitzchak. Yitzchak has numerical value. Yud, Tzadi, Ches, Kuf is 208. Who's 208? Pinchas. Pinchas, Pei, Yud, Nun, Ches, Samach, 208. Eliyahu, the Gemara in Bracha says Eliyahu ba'arba. The secret is like this. Eliyahu ba'arba, there are different meanings. But one meaning is Eliyahu is 52. 52 times 4. Ba'arba is 208. Eliyahu is Pinchas. Yitzchak is considered connected to Pinchas. The end of Parshas Toldos is Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal. Who's that referring to? Yishmael. The fall of Yishmael. The next words are Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak. Says the Balaturim, what's the connection between Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal and Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak? Comes the Balaturim, look at number 24. V'samachle Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak Loimar Kisheyipo Yishmael Bi'achres Hayomim Az Yitzmach Ben David. Who's the Balaturim going like? Who's the last nation standing? Not Edom, not the opinion of Rav, opinion of Rabbi, opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, opinion of Chaim Kanievsky, opinion of Rashi. Yishmael is the last man standing. And when Yishmael falls, then we'll be zocheh to see Moshiach ben David. My flight home is Tuesday. Hopefully I don't have to go back, and we should tackle will be zocheh to see coming of Moshiach ben David. She'yaveh b'her v'yameinu. Amen.